Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm Simon Bestwick.
And I'm Gemma Files, and this, of course, is No Darkness But Ours.
Now, one of the things we've done quite a few times in the last few months is what we call a deep dive, which is essentially, for want of a better term, which is where we'll take a particular film we really, really like, and we will discuss it at as greater length as our audience can tolerate, or possibly a greater length than our audience can tolerate. That remains to be seen. And we've done that with films such as Pendas Fen, In the Earth, Dust Devil, the main.
Yeah, Aterados.
And Aterados, yes, the Argentinian film Aterados. All of those so far have been paywall. You have to be a subscriber to the channel or to our Patreon account to have a listen to them. So this one is going to be a bit different. This is going to be the first one where it's available to the public for free, so you can hear the kind of stuff we witter on about. It's also different because this is going to be the first podcast we do where the topic is chosen by our listeners. We did a Twitter poll. We kind of narrowed it down to us. We had been talking about the films of Eric Red, or films written or co-written by Eric Red, and sort of asked which one do you want us to talk about, and we offered them a toss-up between Near Dark, The Hitcher, and Blue Steel. And overwhelmingly, the verdict was do Near Dark. I still want us to do The Hitcher and Blue Steel.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But Near Dark, it's not a surprise, and it's just rewatched it tonight, the first time in a while, and interesting to compare this to The Lost Boys, which came out around the same sort of time, and it's interesting how many parallels there are, not least that each one includes one of the sons of the actor Jason Miller in its cast. Father Karras from The Exorcist, as the father of both Jason Patrick, who plays Michael in The Lost Boys, and Joshua Miller, who plays the spectacularly repulsive child vampire Homer in Near Dark. I mean, Homer he's like the polar opposite of Claudia in Interview with the Vampire, who's this like angelically beautiful child who's like a rapacious predator. He's like, ugh, everything about him makes
weird, pudgy little horror show with a lisp. And,
It's a weird, pudgy little horror show myself as a child, and not with a lisp. So I should be more sympathetic. But everything about him just makes you sort of. If he was, if he's the kind of child who should be on, Jorex posters, and Planned Parenthood ads,
and Joshua Miller made a little tiny bit of a career there for a while, playing preteen sociopaths, essentially, because he also is in River's Edge as, I think, Keanu Reeves's younger brother, who's pretty obviously on his way to becoming Homer.
So, there were a lot of parallels actually between. I mean, both of them also have a really memorable soundtrack. The Lost Boys, that soundtrack CD, I think, is still selling these days. Complete with from sort of Echo and the Bunnymen covering the doors as People Are Strange, to Beauty Has Her Way by Mummy Calls, which Kate came down the aisle to at our wedding.
God, I love that song.
Absolutely. Why did that band never make it bigger? And Timmy Capello showing up for, despite nobody having asked him to, with long hair, a saxophone.
I still believe.
Stripped to the waist with his abs all glistening with olive oil. Absolutely. Again, who could not love the Lost Boys? But I mean, whereas Near Dark has a soundtrack by Tangerine Dream, and that's all you really need to say. But both of them, I mean, it's kind of
also an amazing use of diegetic music, particularly in the scene in the bar.
Oh my God, yes.
Holy fuck.
The more I thought about it, the more parallels I could see. Like in both cases, you've got you've got a single parent family, the father in Near Dark, the mother in The Lost Boys, with two children, and the older brother, the older of the two siblings, is basically drawn into this other group.
Yes, this other weird found family, made family. Although, I mean, it's a homosocial group in the Lost Boys.
Yeah, it's more of a nuclear family and
more of a nuclear family, and in Near Dark. I mean, I guess you could make an argument that, you know, David and Star, the mom and the dad, and I'm like, no, Star is David's beard. And, you know, she's a honey trap. And I think she knows it.
So very much so. It's a very, it is strictly, it's a total sausage fest apart from her. So there's a beautiful young woman who draws him into that family, and who, in extricating himself from it, he also extricates her from it. Oh, and both families also include a little boy vampire. That's
true. That is absolutely true. And both of them include the idea that vampirism is reversible.
Yes. Although, again, one of the interesting things is that
potentially reversible.
Yeah. In the Lost Boys, there is this line that's a cross with as long as you do not cross the line of actually killing somebody to feed your thirst for blood, then you can still come back. Because May in Near Dark she spent about 4 years.
Yeah, and she's killed lots of people as far as I can tell. She's probably, you know, responsible for an amazing amount of, you know, dead guys and unhappy families.
If they're killing like virtually every night, then that's a lot. That's a very high body count. I think possibly one thing we should do is just have a quick summation of the plot.
Okay, so Caleb, a young cowboy, he lives at home with his widowed father, Loy, played by Tim Thomerson, and his younger sister, Sarah. And you know, they're definitely down home folks, but their life is pretty, you know, it's kind of boring in its way. And one night he puts on his cowboy hat and goes into town to try and find some fun with his boring high school friends. And out into the night comes May, played by Jenny Wright. And Caleb is Adrian Pasdar, by the way. Adrian Pasdar at his dewiest, youngest, you know, pre-Prophet, pre-Heroes, you know, looking good. Anyway, so
drooling on the keyboard there.
Yeah, sorry about that. So basically, he sees May, she sees him, immediate sparks, and he looks up from slapping a mosquito to look at her, and he comes over and he starts to try and charm her, you know, and takes her to see his horse, because he's like, all girls like horses, you know. Immediately you can tell that there's something a little weird about May, because, and she says it herself, you ain't never met no girls like me, you know, because his horse is freaked out by her. She immediately starts talking about how, you know, the light from those distant stars won't reach Earth until 1 million years later, but I'll still be here, and that's why, you know, she realizes that the sun's about to come up, that things are getting a little lighter than she thought they were getting, and she starts begging him to take her home, and he refuses to do so until she kisses him. So he sort of tries to extort a kiss out of her. And instead of kissing him, although she does sort of start to, you know, and it's an amazingly hot moment, she bites him in the neck and runs off across the fields. And he's like, whoa, what? You know, what the hell? His car has broken down, so he starts stumbling home. The sun comes up and he begins to smoke.
Yeah.
And
as in smoke starts pouring from him.
Yeah, like,
lights up a cigarette.
Smoke starts pouring out everywhere. His hands are charring. His skin is bubbling. He's like, what? You know, his sister looks out the window and goes, oh, there's Caleb. There's something wrong with him, Daddy. You know, And as his dad comes out to try and get to him, a van with blacked out windows suddenly
one of those big sort of
it's like a Winnebago. Suddenly appears, driving real hard across the furrows, and somebody reaches out an arm, grabs Caleb up, and whoop, the van goes off, and his dad is like, "What?" And immediately Caleb knows that he's in terrible trouble because he's stuck inside this Winnebago with these very odd people. These people are Severin, played by Bill Paxton, Jesse, played by Lance Henriksen, and Diamondback, played by Jeanette Goldstein. Also Homer, not Homo, played by...
as he says when he grabs him by the boat, Homer, Homer. Mispronounce it and I wouldn't want to be you.
Yeah. And
12-year-old or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly. And these are ostensibly May's relatives. This is her home. This is May's family. Yeah. They argue about whether or not they're going to kill Caleb. And May interposes herself between Caleb and Severin and says, he's been bit, but he ain't been bled. He'll have changed by now, And it's at this point that if you know anything about horror, you're like, oh, these people are fucking vampires. And they are.
Yes.
And we plunge into a movie in which the word vampire is never spoken.
Yeah.
It is a movie about an outlaw family. It is a movie about a man who, is stuck inside of it because of love and addiction. Because very quickly he discovers that he can't get away from May because, the first night that they stop after switching vehicles, which they do all the time, setting the Winnebago on fire and finding, and blacking out the windows of the next vehicle. He gets out and he's like, I gotta go home. My pa and my sister will be waiting for me. It's like, I'm sorry, you're a nice girl, but I gotta go home. And she's like, yeah, you won't get too far.
And he very quickly, he looks, I remember thinking he gets to the bus station and he looks like he's in the throes of full-blown heroin withdrawal.
Yeah, exactly. The guy who won't sell him a ticket because he's $3 short knows it. The bus station dick knows it.
But I remember thinking that cop actually treats him quite decently, considering he obviously sees him. I don't think he'd give him the money if he thought he's just going to stick that in his arm. He thought, okay, get the bus, get home, be a good boy.
Go home, be a good boy.
Yeah, I just remember thinking, I remember sort of commenting, sort of, thank God you're a cop who's a halfway decent human being, but also contrasting him to the sheriff back at Caleb's place, who's been, we're doing what we can. It's kind of like it's
not good enough. Where's my son?
He's been more helpful to Caleb and his family in 5 minutes than this dickhead has in like 2 days.
Yeah, exactly. So Caleb gets on the bus, but almost immediately he starts feeling like he's going to throw up. Yes, they have to let him out, and as he's kneeling, retching in the dirt, he looks up and there's May, and she's like leaning against a car nearby. She's like, "I told you so." And he comes over and she bites open her, I've got something for you, and she bites open her wrist and he latches onto it like a baby with a bottle, baby with the breast.
Yeah.
And
Eli's breast particularly.
immediately he understands that this is what he needs. And so for the next, we watch them going from town to town, we watch them preying on people, and for the next couple of nights, it is again the trio that drives everything is Severin, Jesse, and Diamondback. And they're very clear. It's like, May, you can't do this. You can't just carry this guy. It's like you can't just feed him. He has to kill.
Yeah.
He has to do that, because otherwise he can't stay with us. It's like otherwise we're gonna have to, you'll kill you without killing you. It just means you'll be uncomfortable for a real long time. I take it they're gonna like bury him, face down.
Or maybe they're just going to feed him, throw him into the sunlight, kind of thing. I mean, I suppose that'd be a very long and painful way to.
Yeah, exactly.
Another thing I noticed, because obviously he doesn't cross the line of actually killing someone, but there is this scene when they're with the truck driver, and when May is obviously trying to get him to kill the guy, and can't do it. He's throwing up, and the guy is like, "You're okay," and he can see May sneaking up behind the guy, so he could warn him. But he chooses not to. He looks away, carries on throwing up, ensures the guy's distracted. So
and she just.
Yeah. So he does.
She's a good little killer. She's learned her lessons.
But he doesn't. Well, he doesn't actually do any killing himself. He's perfectly. He's quite complicit in that murder, because he may not quite be able to do it himself, but he can certainly.
He absolutely knows that he cannot survive without blood. That he can't, and that blood is now his heroin. The blood is now the thing that, and I mean, and we get that amazing scene where he's feeding from her next to the oil derricks.
Yeah. Yes.
And the pumping motion is like his heart, as he's feeding from her, and her heart, and the way that they're starting to, synchronize, I guess, and she has to like push him off of her because he's taking too much.
And he's just lying there grinning, even when she says, "You could kill me if you drink too much."
Yeah, exactly. Grinning and drooling blood. Anyway, so but as Jesse says, this can't go on. You got to be a man. So the next night they go to a bar.
Yeah.
And just the most amazing scene. So we see them coming up over the ridge, and they're backlit by, again, this sort of sodium light, it's like that whole thing of America open all night, it's like the freeway, the highway culture where nothing ever closes. There's always a place to drink, always a place to eat, always a place to find people to kill.
It's very much a room. It's about traveling across America, but it's not a picture. It's not a particularly picturesque one. It's like barren farm fields, truck stops, motels. It's all this, the oil derricks. It's all industry. It's the machinery that keeps.
Well, it's the machinery of America. It's like and the freeways are like the veins of America. They're taking away the garbage and they're bringing in the food.
Yeah. Like the veins and arteries of the body.
Yes, absolutely. And again, that serial killer thing. So many people end up being called something like the I-95 killer.
Yeah.
Because truckers, truck stops, highways, hitchhikers. That's like the backbone of finding places to kill people who will not be missed.
So much of it is taking place in transitional spaces.
Yes,
transitory
places. Places that it's like you could come by in a year and that place could be gone. But something else would have taken its place, because there's always got to be a place to stop long enough to kill somebody. Anyway, so they go into the bar. And this incredibly choreographed scene, which I used to show in class, because it's some of the most amazingly choreographed violence, but also like one of the longest scenes. It's broken down into sections, and each section is scored to a different piece of music coming out of the jukebox.
Yeah.
And
covering Fever by Peggy Lee.
Yes. That's right. And so Severin taking Caleb to the bar, trying to get him into a fight with a barfly. Yeah, hit him again. I'm trying to teach him something.
Yeah, get it back, Caleb.
Yeah, that's right.
Get out of there.
Get out of there. I mean, it's like you can totally see how weirdly glamorous. It's not glamorous at all, but there's something about the energy of like going into a place knowing that you can kill everybody inside, and indeed you are going to kill everybody inside, and this place will become like the Marie fucking Celeste of barroom massacres. It's like no one will ever figure out who did this, or how it happened so fast. Slit the barmaid's throat and drain her into a stein and pass it around. The dance that Severin does on top of the bar.
I got a new name for you, Mr. Pig Knuckle.
Yeah, that's right. Having trouble with your hog leg. It's like Bill Paxton is so fucking crazy in this film, and it makes total sense because they had to shoot at night all the time, and they were shooting crazy fast. And at one point he developed some kind of like some kind of cold or something like that. He was just like feeling really bad, and somebody had to come to the set and give him a B12 injection. and that was right before that scene. So
the highest balls.
Yeah, he was super high as balls, and he and Jeanette Goldstein and Lance Henriksen used to go around in character.
Oh God!
When they had gotten off of shift, and they just sort of like just freak people out. Apparently, Jeanette. I think Jeanette Goldstein said that Lance and Bill started doing that near a cop and freaking him out, and she was just like, he's going to shoot you. You've got to stop. You've got to stop looking at him like that.
And then when everyone else in the bar is dead, mate, there's this one terrified young lad, played by James LeGros, who played Mike in the second Phantasm movie. Before they got A. Michael Bolden back. She very tenderly coaxes him out into the dance floor to dance with her. And of course, she looks. In other circumstances, of course, this would be this young lad's dream come true. Oh my God, yes. Jenny Wright's taking me out there, and then she turns around and says, "Caleb, he's yours." And this is, of course, he's
for you, Caleb. And he's just like, ah.
As is James LeGros' character.
Yeah, exactly.
Out the nearest window, understandably.
Jumps out the window. Caleb goes after him and runs him down, but he still can't do it. He lets him go, and everyone is so angry at him. Not me, obviously, but and they're like, "This is the end. This is the end. This is the end for you." But we got to get out of the fucking sun, so we'll talk about this later.
And Jesse's pissed off with May as well. Yeah, you both fucked up because she's caused all this. And Homer is, of course, practically creaming himself at the thought of finally, I think he actually says just like chuck him out now and let him, go and get a suntan.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, deeply, deeply horrible, repellent character. Just on every single level, that little shit.
So they stop at a it's not a motel per se, it's like a place with a whole bunch of little cabins. And it's interesting when Jesse goes in to get set up in one of the cabins, this very old man comes out, and it's a bit like in From Dusk Till Dawn, where it's like ding 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 ding. What do you want? What a fucking room, you old man. What do you think I fucking want? It's like, but and in this case, he gives Jesse the key, and
the sun is coming up, so the sunlight is kind of edging across the desk.
Like,
wrap his hand in a scarf to take the keys.
Yeah, that's right. He gives Jesse the key and he says, "Didn't you come by sometime?" "Yeah, I recognize you." And he's like, "Yeah, I come through here every 30 years or so."
Just make me a reservation.
Yeah, make me a reservation. And you're like, oh my God, that guy must have been like 20 the last time you came through here.
And then they hold up, and then the police are at the door.
The police are at the door, and
they
open the door. Severin opens the door, and he realizes that the sun is still up. They fell asleep for like a second, and now the sun is still up, and yeah, and it's a shootout. It's it's like the hole in the wall gang. They all bust out their guns. They start shooting through the walls. The cops start shooting through the walls.
Which
Sunlight's coming in.
Sunlight.
Yeah. It's like, sunlight, I'm gonna burn.
Probably one of the great bits of dialogue. How you doing, Jesse? Like shit. How are you? I'm down to my last inch of skin.
That's right. And again, it's like they're so happy about it in a strange way. It's like, well, we always knew it'd end like this. Anyway, yeah, even May's like, gets kicked a gun, and she's also, shooting through the wall. And Caleb says, give me a blanket. I'm gonna make a run for it. I'm gonna make a run for the car. Jesse's like, okay, son. Why? Yeah, try it.
Grandpa, doesn't he?
Like
Grandpa, just go, okay, son.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, he calls him Grandpa, and this is when the tide starts to turn for Caleb, because he's willing to risk himself. He's willing to risk himself for May, but he risks himself for everybody else at the same time.
Yeah,
and and he goes out, and he's got
a blanket.
He's as covered as possible, but he immediately starts to burn. Starts to cook.
Keep shooting him. So
yeah, cops are shooting him in his legs. He's going down on one knee, going down on the other. And and he just keeps running, and the blanket bursts into flame. He just keeps running. He manages to make it into the car, and then he drives the entire car through the wall of the cabin, and all of them jump inside, and then he drives out through the other wall. Drives out through the other wall, and suddenly Caleb is the hero.
Yeah, man of the hour kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and they're laughing, and they're, you did good, son. It's like, and he's happy to be accepted by these people, much like his complicity in May killing people to feed him the blood. He's happy to be accepted by these people, because just hanging around with them is tainting. Just hanging around with them will, start to change you into a person that you don't want to be.
There was the big buzz. What she says to him, doesn't she? It's a really telling line. The night has a price.
Yeah, the night has a price.
Yeah,
that's right.
He's not willing to pay, but he really, really does like all the stuff that you get for it. But
yeah, absolutely. So they end up by the time the sun goes down, they're at another motel, and this turns out to be the motel that Loy and Sarah have come to after looking every fucking where for Caleb. Yeah, going out and trying to do what the cops aren't doing for them, and and this is where things start to turn. And we move into the final sequence. It is just such a good film. Just such a good film. If you haven't seen it, see it. Why haven't you seen it? Just see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's definitely.
Yeah, my husband often points out that if you genuinely had to drain an entire human being every night, it's just unviable. That type of vampirism is absolutely unviable, and I agree with that. Even if you're saying things like, okay, well, you drain a person and then you break their neck, you don't You don't drain them to the point of blood and then leave them, because then they turn into a vampire or whatever.
Well, I think she says with Caleb that he's been bit, but he ain't been bled.
That's right.
It's the actual bite where if you suck out the blood, and they die, as long as they die.
So it's the saliva. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So in fact, taking somebody's entire blood supply out and giving them human blood should not do a fucking thing, really.
Well, it struck me as interesting. Of course, but again, if you look in terms of family dynamics, because people often talk about family in terms of blood, and
Yes.
and Caleb's Loy and his sister are basically Caleb's blood family, would be the phrase that some people would use.
That's right. Yeah.
And so it's the transfusion that his father gives him that saves him.
Yeah.
So whether there's a thing there that's verifying his genetic family,
Yeah. Again, that shouldn't work for May.
Well, of course, again, there's the mingling of blood. It's a very
so the idea is that it's Caleb's love for her.
Possibly, yeah. Or the fact that they have that bond. She takes it. She absorbed him into his family. Now he absorbed
her family. Yeah.
In reverse.
Yeah, no, that's true. She was the first person to accept him, the only person to accept him for a long time. But then he was accepted into that family, but then that family is decimated. You know, every other member of that family dies, including the person who one assumes is the patriarch of the family, the oldest member, the person from whom the polluted bloodline descends.
And you can hear the second part of our deep dive into Kathryn Bigelow's Near Dark here at the same time next week. No Darkness But Ours is made possible through generous donations from horror enthusiasts just like you. If you'd like to support us, you can sign up to our Patreon and get access to exclusive content, or you can make a one-off donation via Ko-Fi. Links in the description below. If you enjoyed this episode, please let us know in the comments, share and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the like button if you're watching us on YouTube. Let us know as well if there's anything you'd really like to hear us talking about in the future, and we'll be back with more at the same time next week.
Until then, I have been Simon Bestwick.
And I remain Gemma Files, and this has of course been No Darkness But Ours.